In Milan in the 15th century, one man created some of the greatest artworks the world has ever known. The Mona Lisa, the Virgin of the Rocks, and the Last Supper. They were all created here. The products of the most versatile genius of all time, Leonardo da Vinci. As a longtime art collector, I think that I would trade everything I possess for one ephemeral drawing by Leonardo da Vinci. But Leonardo was more than just a creator of masterpieces. During his lifetime, he worked in the fields of architecture, botany, hydraulics, zoology, astronomy, military engineering, philosophy, sculpture, aerodynamics, optics, ballistics, and anatomy. Much of his work was done in fields that didn't exist until centuries later. His designs for the helicopter and the tank, for instance, weren't fully understood for over 400 years until the machine age. How could one man master so many different professions? Why were his ideas so far in advance of his own time? Well, reading the thousands of words contained in the journals that Leonardo left behind give us only a partial answer. The more we read them, the more awesome his genius becomes, the more mysterious the man himself appears. How did Leonardo reveal so much about his work and so little about himself? What were his secret hopes and fears? What were his private dreams for the future? These are questions which Leonardo himself must answer for us. The city of Milan had been Leonardo's home for virtually all of his adult life until 1499. In that year, Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan and Leonardo's patron and protector, lost the city to the invading French army. Leonardo knew that he must flee Milan, probably never to return again. His life there had been arduous, but still enormously productive. The Duke was a difficult patron. What would it be like somewhere else? Who would he work for? Would he now have to start all over again? Well, while he packed his belongings, Leonardo took stock of his life. He had 24 hours to chart a new course for himself.
I have lived in Milan for nearly 20 years now, and still there are many who are frightened of what I do. To them, my scientific observations are little more than black magic. I have many secrets to guard, observations about the world which cannot fall into the wrong hands. I must make separate piles for all of my studies. Anatomy, warfare studies, architecture, engineering. I have recorded mountains of facts, details upon details, clues to the mysteries of life. And yet I have finished so little, so many half-realized dreams. Where shall I go from here? I know that my time is short, but I am not afraid of dying.
I have studied human development from this fetal stage on into infancy and all the way through to old age. I know that birth and death come from the same source. No, I do not fear dying.
I fear more the pain of leaving behind an unfinished legacy. I must leave a legacy, but what shall it be? Will the generations to come be affected by what I have done? There is an arrogant young would-be sculptor named Michelangelo Buonarroti who claims that all of his statues will live forever. It is not my works I want to live forever. It is my ideas. To suggest, however, that ideas can live forever is blasphemous. Anything against the teachings of the church is considered blasphemy. I pride myself in being versatile, and there are at least a dozen different types of blasphemy that I've been accused of. But the one which seems to frighten so many is that I am a frequent visitor to the morgues. How many hours I have spent alone, examining bodies by candlelight. There is great beauty in a morgue if one can overcome his fear of spending the midnight hours in the company of corpses. Bodies everywhere, each one a book made of muscle and bone. I remember the first time I cut into a human hand and the drawings I made. The muscles appear as hundreds of intertwining threads. The nerves and veins are not in the center, but on the sides of the fingers, so that they are not severed by the constant opening and closing. God is truly a masterful designer. I have been working for many years on an anatomical journal which both pictures and describes the veins and arteries, muscles and ligaments, bones and tendons from 3 separate angles, front, side, and rear. But I must put this away now. I want to know everything about man from birth to death. Do not repeat what I have just said. Man is not a proper subject for study. I worked here both day and night. By day, sketching and writing in my journals. By night, dissecting and recording. I have a painter friend who works in a similar way. It has been said that he paints the most beautiful pictures in all of Italy. He has devoted his whole life to his art. Yet, unfortunately, this friend is endowed with children who are singularly unattractive. He was asked how, when he painted such beautiful pictures, he could sire such ugly children. He merely smiled and said, "That is because I make my pictures by day and my children by night." A tune I composed for a court ball. The Duke ordered me to be responsible for everything. The decorations, the food and wine to be served, the entertainments. It was called the Festival of Paradise, but for me it was only a festival of work. I was threatened with punishment if I failed, and yet I had never before created a court ball. what tasks we are forced to do in order to survive. Sometimes my patrons treat me like a courtesan. They make the most outrageous requests upon me and then get angry if I object. And there are times when I, like a courtesan, am unable to perform my duties. Temporarily, you must understand. How tired it makes me. In my bed at night, I get so little rest. The dreams are so strong, they wake me again and again. Your work, Leonardo, you lag behind. No rest until you have earned it. And then I awake, my face covered in perspiration, my hands trembling. This voice, it haunts me so. And then during my waking hours, there are other voices, voices no less commanding. Where is the painting you promised, Leonardo? Where are the designs you promised? When will you deliver the sculpture? The Duke, the Pope, the King? I tell them all the same things. Soon, Your Grace, soon. I am working as fast as I can. This rarely satisfies them. My best work is done for myself, not for those who command it. When I first arrived in Milan, I felt as if my life was beginning all over again. Such an honor to be a member of the Duke's court. But yet he was so caught up in political intrigues and wars, he soon forgot about me. I had no commissions and barely had enough money to eat. Out of desperation, I wrote a letter to the Duke outlining all of the ways that I could be of assistance to him, like removing water from marshlands and moats, designing bridges, engineering and ballistics, hydraulics and armaments. The letter was ignored. I am told it became a great joke in the court of the Duke. The Duke said that no one but a madman would even suggest he could do so many things. I remember during this time, a priest came by my small studio, making his rounds on Easter Eve as was his custom. When I let him into my studio, he was muttering blessings in Latin and sprinkled holy water on my drawings, ruining them. When I told him to stop, he refused, saying that he was doing God's work and that he would be rewarded 100-fold from above, for God had promised that all good deeds would be rewarded. When he finally left, I filled a huge bucket full of water and I ran to my window. When the priest passed underneath, I flung the water at him and yelled, "Here is your reward from above. You now have it returned 100-fold. My present studio adjoins the ducal palace, and now the Pope himself blesses my works. I'm happy to say, without the use of holy water.
I remember once when the Holy Fathers ordered me to curb my curiosity, saying it would lead to the devil. I spoke to a stone statue for practice before I presented my case to the cardinals. Holy Fathers, my curiosity is a gift from God. I use it only to serve and honor him. Without it, I could not create any of the beautiful frescoes or paintings for your churches. Take away my curiosity, and you take away my art. Surely you can understand that.
You see, the church fathers are stern, but they also love beautiful churches. And logic like mine, they have no answers for. With this pointer, one can actually determine the positions of the planets and the stars. Of all my possessions, perhaps this astrolabe will prove most valuable in helping me to determine where I shall go from here. In Italy now, we are just beginning to realize the wonders that man is capable of. Up until recently, you see, the church fathers were the only ones who could read and write, and how arrogant they were about it. But in the last few decades, all of that has changed. More and more people have begun to read and to write. Books have begun to be printed. Scholarship and the quest for knowledge has become important. I study everything. Everything fascinates me. There are many who would discourage my curiosity.
Stick to painting, Leonardo. Forget the rest. Painting is something you'll truly understand.
But I tell them, how can we understand anything new if we just stick to what we already know? The more we learn about the world around us, the more we learn about ourselves. Each one of us, you see, is totally unique, with our own unique talents. And we each possess the potential to bring about something into the world that has never existed before. How boring my life would have been if I just painted. Although painting is one of my greatest loves, it allows me to join with God in the act of creation. Truly a mystical experience. Ah, my friend. How are you today? Stealing a bit of crumbs? I hope that you're not capturing too many of the palace birds. Good friend. Sometimes I have stood for hours in front of a blank canvas, not knowing where to begin, until suddenly the canvas itself seems to cry out for paint, and my hand only needs to follow its directions. In one of my favorite paintings, The Last Supper, I experimented a great deal with new techniques, new stains and varnishes, a totally different approach to the old and traditional methods. I think I have a sketch here, an old sketch. Ah, yes. You see, I put Jesus at a long table and seated all of the 12 apostles around him, facing us, almost as if we were interrupting them in the middle of their meal. And then I directed the beams of the ceiling and the lines of the tablecloth beneath, so that they all narrowed down and pointed towards the head of Christ, almost as if they were beams of light radiating from the sun. Each of the apostles is reacting to what Jesus has just said to him, which is that soon one of them will betray him. I wanted to show a different emotion in each one of their faces, the sorrow, the anguish, the pain. If we could recreate these feelings in a painting, think what excitement it would have. First, the colors of the disciples' robes began to fade. Then their facial expressions started to lose clarity. Finally, the paint itself began to flake off the wall. My beautiful Last Supper will never be the same. I received my first commission to paint a fighting shield when I was only 15 years old. A bumbling soldier from a nearby village heard of my talents and offered 15 florin for me to paint a fighting shield. The man was such a terrible swordsman The shield had to be ferocious looking so that no one would ever even dare to challenge him. I decided that the angry head of the Medusa, a mythological Greek monster with 100 snakes rising out of its hair, was a frightening sight and surely would serve the purpose. So I gathered together snakes and spiders. I kept them in an old stable where I could study them and make sketches. They served as the models for the heads of my snakes, hissing and flicking their tongues. Finally, I gave Medusa a cruel and tormented face with savage features and angry, blood-chilling eyes.
When it was completed, I released all of the snakes and placed the shield in a dark corner of the stable where a single beam of light would fall upon it when I opened the shutters. And then I invited my father into the stable. I closed the door behind us and placed him in front of the shield, which he could not see.
Then suddenly I threw open the shutters, and the Medusa seemed to leap out of the darkness at my father. It frightened him so much, he ran screaming out of the barn and nearly fainted in the chicken coop outside. Later, when he got over his anger at me, he said that the shield was too good for the man who had originally ordered it, at least not at the price that he wanted to pay. And he took it to a nearby castle where a nobleman he knew offered him 300 florin for it and considered it a bargain. After that experience, I knew that I was destined to do more painting. I needed to receive more formal training, however, so my father arranged for me to become an apprentice to the great artist and sculptor, Andrea del Verrocchio. Under Verrocchio, I learned to train the eye as well as the hand. He was a wonderful artist, stern yet fair, but he took his work so seriously. I remember he used to walk around so pompously in the studio, criticizing all of the apprentices' works.
Ah, Leonardo. Oh, Leonardo, you disappoint me. Leonardo, all over Italy, my works are known for their beauty, their grace, their delicate sense of style. You study with me to create such works of art for yourself, do you not? Then why, when all of the other apprentices are painting such beautiful pictures of angels and churches, do you insist on painting a crow eating a lizard? Or of birds all of the time in flight? Birds, birds, birds! I see. Birds are fascinating to you. Well, that is all very well and good, Leonardo, but are you studying to become a painter or a bird? Enough. Get back to your classical studies.
He loved to shout at me, but in truth, he was a gentle and kind man. It was my good fortune to spend many years apprenticing with Verrocchio. Even at the age of 15, my overwhelming curiosity was bringing me into constant conflict with authority. It was at that age that I began my lifelong pattern of being misunderstood. My botanical studies. So many more of them are outside. I should pack them as well. I'm afraid that I shall never complete some of these drawings and paintings. Ah, my friend. You are here as well. You and I are of a similar mold. We are so dependent on others for our survival. Perhaps that is as it should be. But why?
I remember when the Duke forbade me to use the palace gardens for my botanical drawings.
They interfere with your military engineering, Leonardo. That is all I require from you at the moment.
Well, as a result, I had to go out into the countryside for my studies.
I wonder if I will ever find a patron who will be as fascinated by the study of leaves as they would by the study of warfare. Who understands as I that only by studying nature will we ever learn to truly understand ourselves. Each plant is totally unique, with its own branching patterns and root system.
How many times have I made nature studies? As many times, perhaps, as I have sketched the different faces I see about Milan each day. They change, too, according to their inner seasons, their own periods of growth and decay. When I speak to the Duke of the importance of nature, he rarely listens. But for all the problems the Duke has caused me, I fear it will only be worse somewhere else.
To others, the world seems a source of hopeless mysteries. To me, it seems a source of limitless knowledge. While I worked diligently at Verrocchio's studio during the day, at night I spent most of my time trying to understand everything I could about flight. I noted carefully the center of gravity of birds as they took off and flew through the air. I did many drawings of them soaring and darting through the skies. I even did a design for a machine which would help man, I thought, to fly through the sky. And this gained me a great reputation throughout all of Florence as a lunatic. A sketch for a commission that I received from the Church Fathers to do a portrait of the Virgin of the Rocks. I remember how excited I was about this. I wanted it to radiate a type of spiritual beauty that had never before been seen on a canvas. And I only allowed myself to work on it when I was in a frenzy of artistic inspiration. As a result, it has taken me nearly 20 years to complete. I was also to do a commission for the Duke to create an equestrian statue in honor of his father. It was to be the greatest equestrian statue ever, to weigh 20,000 pounds and stand 26 feet high. But because the Duke was defeated by the French army, I'm afraid that shall never be completed either. I remember as a child, I was always fascinated by the way that objects changed according to the light in which you saw them. I would take many household objects, such as bowls, spoons, plates, and goblets. I put them into the window to see how they changed as the sunlight struck them from various angles. Fascinating. Later on in life, I applied that study of light to architecture. I remember once a man was building an archway. I watched him carefully and noticed that the archway was crooked. When I said to him, "My friend, your archway is crooked. If you will but look at the shadow on the ground, you will be able to see." He refused to listen to me. I again said, "If you will look at the shadow on the ground, my good friend, you will see that your archway is crooked. I know, appearing to you from your angle, it seems to be straight, but that is merely an illusion caused by the glare of the sun. Look at the shadow." He refused to listen to me. Unfortunately, people only see what they want to see. I told him that within a year that archway would collapse. And of course it did. God gave us minds because he expects us to use them. Anything short of excellence is completely unacceptable to me. I would rather abandon 99 out of 100 projects and achieve one work of quality than complete all 100 and achieve only mediocrity. If only I could convince my patrons of that. A friend of mine, Titian Vercelli, was once commissioned to do a portrait of a very rich and powerful woman, once known for her great beauty. He did a magnificent portrait, I thought, exact, precise. But when she saw it, she threatened to have him beheaded unless he changed it to make her look 40 years younger. We must learn to be diplomats as well as artists if we are to survive. Recently, I had a narrow escape with the Duke. What shall I tell him? That my astronomy and my physiology studies take up all of my time? Or that my hydraulics or... No. Nevertheless, I must give him some excuse. Your Majesty. You sent for me? The portrait? Well, I am afraid that I have not been able to work on it now, Your Majesty. Why not? Well, because at this very moment I am painting a portrait of the Queen of France, a very homely woman. And if I were to paint your wife as more beautiful than the Queen of France, which she is, Your Majesty, truly a goddess, it is true. It could cause bloodshed, warfare. The French would never stand for such an insult. You are aware of that, sire. What? Well, yes, I could paint your wife's portrait now if you insist, Your Majesty. But I am afraid that I would have to put a few well-placed warts here and there on her face just to avoid bloodshed. Well, we could postpone it if you insist, sire. Just until the portrait of the Queen is completed. Yes, I understand. A very wise decision, Your Highness. Thank you. Thank you. How my patrons anger me. Sometimes they even drive me into rages. If I paint a battle scene, for instance, the only thing that matters to them is to show the proper side victorious. Their opponents humiliated at their feet. My attention to detail, the subtleties of the shading and the colors, this means nothing to them. Such work is for eunuchs, not for painters. My friend Niccolo Machiavelli says that it is amazing I have kept my head making such statements. I hope that in the future, men will learn to be more humane in their treatment of one another. But for now, if a ruler is not prepared to meet violence with violence, he is quickly overthrown. I have created many different types of armaments. For instance, cannons for hurling projectiles, a bomb with directional fins for greater mobility, and a design for a new type of vehicle clad in armor which is virtually indestructible and can travel anywhere. These military designs are intriguing to my intellect, but they trouble my conscience. You see, I wish to promote life, not death. That is why I am writing my anatomical journals. The physicians of my time would learn so much more by studying the human body in great detail than by bleeding people with leeches and cups. Nevertheless, I am fascinated by military designs, I know. But if one soldier runs another through with a sword, who is responsible for that death? The soldier or the man who made the sword? There is a cruel sport practiced in my time called cat in a cage. In it, a man is shaved, bald, his hands tied behind his back, stripped to the waist, and put into a cage. Then a cat, which has been driven into a frenzy, is thrown into the cage with him. The man is not allowed out until he has killed the cat, using only his head and his teeth. It is a terrible spectacle to watch. Sometimes I feel as though I were locked in a cage with my own curiosity, and it is impossible to make peace with it. The more I try, the more the forces of my time seem to make it impossible. And the only way out is to kill it. But to kill it would be killing a friend that otherwise would stand by my side. Were it not for my sense of humor, these times would drive me mad. In fact, I remember, as a child, I was once called Leonardo, the great beaked eagle of Vinci. And how it made me laugh. This was not as insulting as it may have seemed, for I have always admired the grace and freedom of birds as they soared and darted through the skies. As a child, when I could afford it, I would sometimes buy all of the caged birds at the marketplace and take them outside of the city and return them to the wind where they belong. Once I even tried to fly myself. I invented a complicated machine with ropes and pulleys. I found a steep, grassy hillside, climbed to the top, and when I was ready, I leaped out into space and flapped my wings furiously. And I flew down. A painful learning experience. But as you can see, I did recover. And all of that is behind me now. Besides, I am too old for such sport. Perhaps it is just as well that I did not succeed. The ruling family of Florence, the Medicis, were very fond of hunting, especially large birds. How they would have loved a target as big as Leonardo da Vinci. Ah, Florence. Perhaps one day I shall speak of Milan with the same sad fondness. I was so alone here. Loneliness somehow becomes an artist. He is less prone to compromise. Many years ago, I adopted a young boy. He is the only one who knows of my life, who shares my life with me. His name was John Giacomo Caproti, but I nicknamed him Salai, which means little devil. And he was a little devil. You know what he did when he first came to live with me? He stole money to buy clothing. I sat him down and I said, Salai, you do not have to steal to get clothing. I will buy you all the clothing you need. The next day, he stole more money to buy more clothing. Such a little devil. Now that he has grown, he has become a great help to me, however. He has helped me to build easels to mix my paints and blend plasters. If he were a good boy, one who was always perfect, perhaps we would not have grown so close. You see, I needed someone who needed me. It was because of Salai that I began to write a series of children's stories, fables. I should tell you one. It sums up my feelings about the political struggles of our time. There was a timid mouse who was being held captive in his mouse hole by a ferocious weasel who laid in wait outside of his home should the mouse venture out. One night, a cat came along, saw the weasel, and pounced on it, tore it to pieces. The mouse was overjoyed, and that evening came out of his home to celebrate his newfound freedom. Whereupon the cat leapt upon him from the shadows and gobbled him up. The moral of that story is that one should never think that we are any safer when one tyrant is replaced by another. I have had many discussions, or perhaps I should say arguments, with my friend Niccolo Machiavelli about politics. Niccolo lived in Florence at the same time I did, and we often spoke together. Niccolo did most of the talking. Men should treat each other charitably, Leonardo, he would say. How can you paint such beautiful pictures of people and still know so little of what is on their minds? People want only one thing, more, Leonardo, more of everything. They are never satisfied. Greed, not love, rules the world. I argued that surely it must be part of the civilizing process, Niccolo, to curb one's appetites, to which he said, then kings and queens must be the least civilized people in all the world. If only I could invent a cylinder that would look into human hearts, that surely would have been my greatest invention. At the moment, Salai is not speaking to me. Recently, I had to disappoint him. A bishop asked me to recommend one of my students to paint a fresco. Sadly, I had to recommend someone else, even though the bishop had spoken to Salai already. Salai, you see, lacks the eye of an artist. Oh yes, I have taught him everything I know, but it is impossible to teach someone to have the feelings of an artist. Unfortunately, Salai lacks that gift. Why do I spend much of my life disappointing people? This constant striving for perfection. Why am I never without it? Whereas Salai completes his tasks and is done with it without ever looking back. There is something to be said in that. I sometimes wonder what God, looking down on us from heaven, must think of his creations. He had the courage to create the world and present us with it. Why haven't we the courage to explore it fully? For centuries, man has refused to look at the world around him. To me, life is a mystery, and exploring that mystery should be a source of joy, not fear. I am often asked why my painting called the Mona Lisa has such a mysterious quality. It is because I wanted it to duplicate that special feeling of mystery in a painting. I am asked, why is her smile so fleeting and mystical? Where is the winding road in the background leading under those strange and ominous skies? I am always pleased by this. To ask such questions about a painting or about the world can never do us harm. Each artist must somehow discover the unseen, hiding behind the natural object. Through his imagination, he sees the world, and through his brush, he reveals the magic of eternity. I speak to you of this because there are few in my time who understand. That is why I keep my journals. Yes, they are for the future. I want others to come after me who are unafraid to analyze the world around them. Perhaps that is my legacy. Not my writings or my paintings, but my life itself. If my struggles clear a path for others in their quest to know the unknowable, then my life will be complete and stand as my greatest and final journal.
Leonardo left his studio in Milan, never to return. Several of the paintings which had been begun there, including the Mona Lisa, one of the very few works with which he was entirely satisfied, traveled with him. The rest were left behind to be finished by his students, causing historians endless problems to finding what was an original Leonardo. He seemed unable to take root anywhere and became more and more preoccupied with his journals. He journeyed from city to city, from patron to patron, in what the historians call his wandering phase. Eventually, he was summoned to Rome by the Pope himself, who honored Leonardo by offering to serve as his patron. But Leonardo soon fell out of favor. Always the scientist, he devoted most of his time to the dissection and analysis of corpses, rather than to the creation of religious masterpieces, which the Pope wanted. Finally, he was forbidden entrance into the city morgues, and he left the city. Sadly, the great anatomical journal which Leonardo had devoted so much of his life to, perhaps the most scientifically advanced documents of his time, was never utilized in the manner which he desired. Instead, it was torn apart, and after his death, it was sold page by page for the very beautiful illustrations that he created for it. His writings, including precisely detailed descriptions of the inner workings of the human body, were virtually ignored. Art collectors bought and sold the pages for the prestige of owning an authentic Leonardo. And yet the principles Leonardo stood for, the devotion to knowledge and human understanding can never be dismantled. Leonardo remains the greatest example of the strength and versatility of the human spirit, the ultimate Renaissance man.
One day, man will fly. He will soar through the clouds of ignorance, using only the wings of his imagination. The mind is the greatest flying machine of all.